Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. I think we have enough quorum to kick us off. My name is Karim Inthiga. I work as the Africa Regional Coordinator at the Microinsurance Network, which my colleague will introduce to you in a bit. But before we kick us off, why are we here today? Microinsurance is an important tool for the financial security of underserved population, yet the penetration rate, especially in Africa remains significantly low, and vulnerable households are left unprotected from everyday risks. Now, on the other hand, behavioral science offers a powerful tool to address this gap, to address the challenges and the barriers that are contributing to the low penetration rate and to the low adoption, and by extension, to the low coverage that these vulnerable households experience. By leveraging behavioral science principles, microinsurance players can build more relevant products, tailored communication approaches, and eventually foster trust and significantly contribute to the adoption of microinsurance product. Now, this webinar marks the launch of a pioneering initiative between the Microinsurance Network and the Busara Center for Behavioral Economics to integrate behavioral science into inclusive insurance through a structured learning series that you will get to hear more about, and collaborative efforts. We aim to equip providers with practical tools to enhance product design, to boost customer engagement, and to expand microinsurance coverage across Africa and beyond. But before we kick off, just a few housekeeping rules. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so feel free to keep posting your questions in the Q&A chat box, as well as introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, what organization you represent, and most importantly, what you're looking forward to during the call. So for the next 1 hour, we will have a deep dive into the structure of the program. We'll have a little bit of a teasing in terms of what behavioral science is, and then we'll also have a case study presentation from one of our partners on how they are leveraging behavioral science in microinsurance. Without much further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the first speaker, Aziar, who is a senior manager at the Microinsurance Network. He is responsible for a variety of programs, including regionalization, best practice group coordination, organizing the global events that we have, managing relationships with our members. He does it all. He has over 20 years experience in evaluating, developing, and designing public policy for social inclusion in the LATAC region. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Aziar to give his opening remarks on behalf of the network.
Thank you very much, Karimi, for that very good introduction, I guess, on my person. So it's really a pleasure to be here and to mark the launch of this partnership, or this very promising partnership between one of our members, Busara, and the Microinsurance Network. So for those of you who don't know the Microinsurance Network, it's a multi-stakeholder organization that's based in Luxembourg, but we're active in the global south, and our mission is to promote the development of risk mitigation tools for low-income communities, which of course include insurance. What we do is we bring together all these actors, so insurers, regulators, researchers, donors, practitioners, and any other organizations or individuals who share our vision and mission, right? And that is basically advancing development of insurance solutions for low-income communities and MSMEs. So we believe that insurance is a vital tool for building resilience and protecting the most exposed from those shocks that too often push families deeper into poverty and don't see a way out. So microinsurance is a solution that can give some support in avoiding those circumstances. So if you share a vision, if you believe, if you work in this field or you're just interested in learning more, I invite everyone to, of course, to visit our website, register for our newsletter, and why not join our network as well? It's easy, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have regarding that. But for today, I'm very happy to introduce kind of this partnership with Busara that since we are looking to bridge a very critical gap in our field, which is understanding and applying behavioral science to drive the uptake of effective use of insurance. So I had the privilege of meeting Rahab 2 years ago in Lomé, where she presented the preliminary results of a study they were working on that highlighted behavioral trends on MFIs as key distribution channel of microinsurance products. And I have to say, I was very impressed not only by her as an amazing speaker and passionate advocate of this topic, but also by the work that Busara was doing and in understanding the underlying issues in the perception of insurance, not only from a final customer point of view, but also from those in charge of distributing it. So this is an issue that goes far, far beyond financial education, which is a common topic, a recurring topic in our field. So this really goes beyond, much beyond that. And so we believe that improving this understanding is key to developing more customer-centric approaches and therefore promoting the uptake of truly inclusive insurance. So I guess this is what this partnership is about, and so we are very, very happy to joining forces with Busara to identify ways to support our entire ecosystem to use behavioral data and evidence to improve product design, enhance client engagement, and well, ultimately increase the uptake of inclusive insurance. We believe that this is a step forward. This is a step towards reshaping how we all think about and build insurance solutions. So we hope you can all join us in this journey that we're having together, and to actively participate in all the activities we have planned. But before I finish, I'd like to thank Busara for giving us the opportunity of working on this with them, and especially also from our team, Karimi, who's been pushing for this for some time. And thank you all, and really happy for this partnership.
Thank you so much for those remarks, Aziar. And indeed, as you have said, the network remains committed to fostering initiatives and engagements that actually contribute to the development of the microinsurance sector globally. If you'd like, as he has said, please check out our website and also check out the flagship project that we have, which is the Landscape of Microinsurance, where we recently launched the report that paints the picture of how the microinsurance landscape is across Africa, Asia, and the LATAC region. Our second speaker for the day, who will also speak a little bit more about behavioral science and its role in ensuring that we are designing relevant products that are actually serving the underprivileged household, is Rahab. Rahab is an engagement director at Busara, and she's building a risk management and insurance research portfolio. She believes that insurance is more than just a product. In fact, if you have met her speaking about insurance, you will see the passion from how she talks about microinsurance or insurance in general and its impact at the household level. In her work promoting resilience for rural development, Rahab aims to understand how communities and interest groups manage risks through formal and informal mechanisms. She's passionate again about helping women and small medium enterprises improve their financial resilience in the face of climate and health shocks. An agronomist, Rahab is an agricultural insurance expert with over 19 years of experience in the insurance industry. Welcome, Rahab, to make your remarks and also your presentation.
Thank you, Karimi and Asia, for the kind comments. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So I'm excited about this partnership that we are launching with the Microinsurance Network, because it gives us an opportunity to introduce behavior science to the insurance community in Africa. Behavior science has been applied in insurance in the developed world for a while now. Most of us on this call are probably aware of Lemonade, the insurtech in the US that has heavily leveraged behavior science in its business model. For example, their business model is actually built on the idea of creating a zero-sum game for zero-sum game for consumers, for sharing information and being honest about their operations. You may know that Lemonade takes a flat fee for its operations. They give back a portion of the surplus after paying claims to charity and so on. And so, they're also applying AI to reduce frustrations during claims. And so there's various ways they've actually incorporated behavior science in their model. In Africa, you may be aware of Discovery, but in general, there isn't many insurers in this continent that have adopted this approach yet. Second slide. So if you're not using behavior science, then you're probably doing business as usual. And you're the one I'm referring to here, that you're assuming that people behave, or your customers behave in a certain way, that they take a calculated approach, that they are carefully deliberating your offers, thinking through the information you're providing them to make a decision. But what we find from science is that we make about 35,000 decisions in a day, and both big and small. So you can see that actually a big chunk of those decisions are made and in an unconscious and automatic manner. And so, this automatic decision-making process follows certain predictable patterns, in this process, then there are certain factors that could be making people to could be affecting how people take up insurance or how they use an insurance product once they have it. It could be affecting how they are managing risks as opposed to how they're expected to do so. And so understanding human behavior is going to be important for insurance companies in 2025 and beyond. Next slide. So to just demonstrate ways in which we behave in an irrational manner, or in a manner that is probably not as carefully well thought out, we'll do a small activity. So we'll take maybe a couple of seconds here. So assume I am giving you a choice to either give you $100 today, after this webinar, or $102 tomorrow. Which option would you pick? So put your answer in the chat. You have a chance of $100 today after this webinar, or $102 tomorrow. What would you pick? Okay, I can see a variety of answers coming in. A lot of you are saying $100. Quite a few others are also saying. Someone is asking, what is the interest rate? $100. Okay, so next slide. I give you another choice. Assuming now it's at the end of the year. So if I promise to give you $100 in December at the end of the year, so within 6 months, or $102 in January next year, what is your response now? Francesca is saying $100 with a lot of exclamation. Okay. So maybe I'll pick on one person. One person to just give their response. So let's see. I'm looking for someone who said $100 and then shifted to $102 in 7 months, just to hear what their reason would be. So scrolling through the chats. I'm picking on James Jones. If you could just give us your the reason for your response. What did you pick first, and what did you pick second for your second choice? James Jones, if you could just unmute and tell us your answer. Okay, if James is not able to, we can just pick somebody else. How about Zipporah? Zipporah Muchoki? I see a familiar face, so if you could just give us your answer.
Rehab, I think since it's a webinar format, they cannot unmute unless Stephen maybe unmutes someone.
Okay.
So maybe they can raise their hand or something. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just keep that for now in that case. Thanks for that. Next slide. So what I'm seeing in that, from the responses we are seeing, there's quite a couple of people who had selected $100 today, and then when faced with the second choice, they opted for $102 in 7 months. But also we see that there's a variety of responses here. So what we're seeing here is one type of bias at play, where 1 month today is not the same as 1 month in half a year's time. Essentially, it's like saying waiting. It's difficult to wait for the $102 tomorrow, but if there's a delay in place, if you have to wait until the end of the year, you might as well just wait until January for the $102. And by the way, $2 in 1 day is a pretty good interest rate. It almost sounds like a scam, actually. But it's interesting to see that people would rather take $100 today than $102 tomorrow. And so these are what you're seeing on the screen here is results of a study that Busara ran in 2015 for the World Bank. And in this study, we found that many people, as you've seen in some of you, would prefer to take money sooner if given the chance to make that decision now, rather than wait for a little more money in the future. And this study was actually performed in 5 countries, both poor with poor and rich people. The World Bank staff are also included, and we see similar patterns across. So this is a really strong behavioral bias that you're seeing. Next slide. So just to give you a little more context about this is called hyperbolic discounting, and there's an element of time preference also incorporated in here. So hyperbolic discounting is the tendency for people to value immediate rewards. Even if it's a smaller amount, you prefer $100 today than waiting for $102 tomorrow. And you can certainly imagine how this kind of behavior and thinking can impact, a proposition for insurance. So if you're talking about long-term insurance, you're talking about pensions, where people have to wait for 10 years, 15 years, and so on for the insurance benefits. How do you communicate about these products? How does it affect how they're willing to stay on, or how they drop off in this case? So understanding human behavior is helpful for insurance companies to be aware of some of this. And this is just one example of a common bias, actually, as we've seen even in our own interactions, that it's actually a common thing. So Francesca will be giving us other more practical biases and other mechanisms that they've been able to identify in their work. But this is just to make the case for why it's important for insurance organizations and other organizations involved in insurance to understand human behavior. Next slide. And so, taking a broader perspective, we understand that, we're not operating business as usual. When you think about all the challenges and how fast things are changing in the world today, climate change, different generations coming into play, or being, starting, Gen Zs, for example, starting to become customers of insurance, technological disruptions happening, AI, and all the other, disruptions that are happening, economic constraints that, since COVID, there's always been something, one thing after another, that constrains people's decision making. All of these compounding issues have an impact on how hard or how complex financial decision making becomes, including the uptake of insurance. And so in this context, we can only assume that we're not operating in an environment where business is usual, and it becomes even more important to understand how humans behave, how your customers behave, potential customers, so that you can leverage those mechanisms in favor of the kind of behaviors that you want to see. Next slide. So I'll just give you a really quick introduction to Busara, and then we get into the meat of the discussion today. Next slide. So Busara advances and applies behavior science in the global south, and we are working in a variety, or applying this in a variety of fields. So not just insurance and risk management, but we are operating in fields like health, agriculture, education, among others. Next slide. So you'll be able to see in this slide, how we are distributed across the global south. So our focus is on Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And we have offices in a couple of African countries. Next slide. And so, behavior science is at the core of the work that we're doing. And behavior science really is an analytical approach that helps us to understand the gap between people's intentions and their actual actions. I think all of us would have experienced a scenario where you talk to customers or potential customers about an idea of a product. You even do focus group discussions. You ask them if they're interested, and then when you launch, you don't see the results that you were expecting. So there is an intention action gap, and this is really the gap that behavior science seeks to solve. Next slide. So, our minds are not as independent as we think. The decisions we make are influenced by our memory. They're influenced by what our friends or, our peers are doing. They're influenced by the environment in which this decision is being made. Whether we are being offered incentives to take a certain decision, or how a choice is framed to us, how it's presented to us. All of these things actually affect how we make decisions. And so there is certain patterns and predictable patterns in which we make this decision. So even where there is what appears to be irrationality, it's predictable those patterns are also predictable. Next slide. And so what we're doing at Busara, and what behavior science really does is, it seeks to understand these inconsistencies. So, for example, if we were working on a project to increase uptake in pensions uptake, we would be looking at what is stopping people from taking up this product. What is at the core of the inconsistency that we are seeing, where the desired behavior, assuming the product is fine, assuming the customers can afford, assuming everything else is fine, and they're still not purchasing, then we try to understand what the inconsistencies are, and then we build or we tailor solutions and interventions around that. Next slide. So the thing we would be emphasizing here is testing effectiveness of interventions, because we can all come up with ideas, but when they're not tested, then we're not actually sure what would work. Humans can. I like to say that humans can surprise you. So as no matter how much research you do, if you've not tested the interventions, then they're probably not ready for launch. Next slide. So here are some examples in conclusion of work that we're doing. And these are just 3 examples of projects that are currently ongoing that we can actually share results of the work. A lot of the work we do, the results are not shareable publicly, but these ones are. And so we're looking forward to being able to share and disseminate this work later. So the first one is around mapping behavioral readiness for insurance. And the question we're really tackling here is what, is it possible to predict the kind of person or profile that would be ready to take up insurance? And the point here is that we focus a lot on affordability, but even people who can afford are in many cases not buying insurance. So there must be other things that come into play. And here what we're doing is testing things like locus of control, we're testing trust, we're testing even emotions, and conducting an insurance game, combining all of these to actually understand segments that are more suitable or relevant for insurance, and then how to how to translate that into real life, like what is the guidance for insurance companies in how then they can utilize that knowledge when identifying or qualifying clients or potential clients during an insurance sales process. And then the second one is a lot more focused on gender. I think we all know that there's a huge gender gap even in insurance uptake, and there isn't enough understanding of what is it that makes what is different about how women make decisions, particularly about insurance. And there are certain dynamics that we want to consider, including their caregiving roles, the fact that they don't make decisions alone. This is happening in a context of a household where other individuals and the power play and other dynamics come into play in how women would be making these decisions. So we want to understand what spousal involvement and household responsibilities have, the impact that has on how women make that decision, and that would be helpful for helping in targeting women and communicating to women as well. And then the final one is examining the effect of different forms of insurance, different formats of providing insurance information, audios, skits, brochures, websites. So looking at a variety of those media and how people actually consume information on that, which ones are more effective at getting people to make a decision. And then we go deeper, especially on the website format, to using eye tracking technology to understand the journey basically people take when they are reading information on our website. Like, how many steps do they take to get to the final point where they can make a decision? Where do they get stuck? What patterns are happening? Are they scrolling to the end and then going back because they haven't found the information they're looking for, and so on? So these are 3 studies that are going on that we can share. So if you are interested in being added to the dissemination plans, please indicate on the chat either number 1, 2, and 3, or if you're interested in all 3, that's also fine. But just let us know if we can add you to the dissemination plans. So thank you, Karemi. I'm just conscious of the time and handing it back to you. That was just to introduce Busara.
Thank you so much, Rehab, introducing us to just the principles of behavioral science and how that replicates itself in how customers make decisions. Insurance is a promise that is made to people, and often when it comes to microinsurance, you're making this promise to a household that already has other conflicting priorities on how they are to spend the money that is to be the premium. And so a lot of this decisions, as Rehab has talked about, are influenced by their environment, their memory of their previous interaction with the financial inclusion or the financial services ecosystem, their motivation, and also their community around them, their peers. So then how do you factor this when you are designing your inclusive insurance products, when you're marketing it to them, and above all, when you are making the decision on what risks to cover. Now, the second speaker, or rather the third speaker, will actually be sharing practical case studies in terms of how they are incorporating behavioral science and working with insurance companies to advance the adoption of behavioral science in inclusive finance, or rather in finance in general. So I'd like to introduce to you Francesca. Francesca currently works at a Swiss Re, where she is the head of behavioral research at the organization. She leads a global team of industry experienced behavioral scientists who apply insights from psychology, economics, and neuroscience to address challenges in the insurance or reinsurance sector. Her team collaborates with prominent academics and conducts field experiments to test and measure the impact of behavioral intervention on the behavior of both customers and insurers. She is currently pursuing a PhD in management at the University of St. Gallen and holds an MSc in economics from the London School of Economics. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Francesca to give her presentation.
Thank you, Karimi, and really thanks to all the previous speakers, because now I have an easy chance of just telling you how I've applied it in practice. But the hard job of introducing the topic and hooking the audience is really done. So thank you for the warm welcome. I'm going to share the screen and take you through some of the work that my fellow colleagues in the Life and Health Sustainability team have been doing, indeed embedding behavioral science insights in inclusive insurance in Africa. Before we go there, I also want to introduce you to really application of behavioral science in insurance as we do it at Swiss Re. So some of the concepts will be the same ones you've heard, just with a little bit of a different spin that maybe speaks to a few different people in the audience. So indeed, behavioral economics for reinsurance or insurance. We study the psychology of judgment, decision-making, and behavior, or everything that has to do with policyholders, but also my colleagues, fellow insurance professionals, and yourselves. But why behavioral economics? As we just heard from Karimi, insurance is a very complex optimization problem of having to figure out whether the premium is worth it based on your risk exposure, based on the future payout you will get, what budget you have available, the brand, whether the marketing, as we just heard, is communicating in a way that allows policyholders to understand what it's about, whether you like the agent, whether you're really tired and you've had a long day and don't want to put up with this as well, what time of the day, whether you have other policies that maybe do the job already, or whether you want to try something new, etc., etc., etc. You can already feel probably your brain hurting after all this decision making. And indeed, what happens is a little bit different. We try, but then we're bounded in our rationality and we don't really get to the end of that complex equation. And this is a biological development that we've performed, that we have benefited from. Indeed, if we were to go through our days making complex decisions, like the complex equation that I showed to you, we'd be really tired and burnt out. Luckily, we've developed some shortcuts to find the answers. Sometimes the shortcuts work and sometimes they don't. So let me give you some examples. I think it was alluded to earlier that many people will buy what they are buying. I moved to Switzerland, which is where I'm based, a few years ago, and I looked to my desk, and next to me there seemed to be a nice lady who was my buddy, and I asked her, "Which insurance do you have?" That's how I bought my first insurance, and I'm not ashamed of it. It's quite a human way of doing it. Or often people might say, "Well, yesterday I didn't truly need insurance, so I'll just stick to that." Or I'll pick the one that I recognize. Maybe I heard that name or brand before. Or I'll take the least risky option, maybe the one that is a little bit cheaper or the one that I understand a little bit better. Or I'll follow the experts. Maybe there's someone in your community whom you trust or whom your policyholders, customers trust, and they'll follow what they're doing. So when these strategies work, behavioral scientists call them heuristics, quick rules of thumbs to follow. But sometimes they don't work and they work against you. Meaning, imagine you're surrounded by people that have never bought insurance before. And so you're kind of bound to that decision making, and this is playing against you. And so this is when sometimes we refer to them as biases that refrain us from performing, maybe a behavior that is more aligned with our intentions. Here I'm giving you a few names, like it was explained earlier, to the behavioral theories behind the behaviors we just mentioned. Social proof refers to purchasing behavior that follows the norm. Sticking to what you did yesterday means that you're sticking to the status quo. Picking a salient option you recognize is an exposure or salience effect. Taking the least risky option may be risk aversion. I've often heard insurance as being referred to as a solution for risk-averse individuals, but truly risk aversion also speaks to the fact that maybe doing what you did yesterday feels like the safe option, and you'll stick to that. You'll follow the experts. That's again an example of social proof. There are many, many, many more biases. Many of our behavioral scientists refer to this complex image, which you can find online and is referred to as the cognitive bias codex, that tries to create a little bit of order on all of these nuances in our behavior. It's quite funny to go through it, as you'll probably recognize a few of your own, or maybe your family's behaviors, or colleagues or policyholders' behaviors in there. So a little bit about behavioral economics at Swiss Re. I was happy to join the company because when I joined, it was one of the first, maybe the first reinsurer who truly introduced behavioral science in the reinsurance context. There have been consultants working in the space before, and we were very happy to learn from them. And since then, we've done a lot of A/B testing or observational studies, trying to find out what works. As mentioned, we do partner with leading universities or providers, especially when we have a gap in our knowledge. Maybe it's the first time that we look at a topic in a specific region or in a specific part of the insurance value chain, and that's where we would partner with them. I will skip to tell you a little bit more of what my colleagues in life and health sustainability do, because what I want to present to you today are case studies that are truly led by them. Indeed, Swiss Re is a leading reinsurer, which means we insure the insurers or governments, but we also look at bringing new insurance solutions where these don't exist before. And so the life and health sustainability team does this also in the Africa region, with very much of a focus on increasing accessibility and affordability. And so their work is summarized on the right-hand side of the slide. They will look at indeed carrying out some consumer research, sometimes with us, with my team, on assessing opportunities, identifying partners, so to try and bring really new insurance solutions onto the market. They would develop propositions. Swiss Re has a lot of expertise across the whole insurance value chain, and that's where we bring that to the market as well. And then we also offer risk management. So we're really an end-to-end provider also when it comes to inclusive insurance solutions. The link is there in the slide if you want to take a look later, and I know the slides will also be circulated. And I've also included the name of Shelley, who's leading the team, at the end of the presentation, if you have questions for her. All right, but now let me tell you about the actual applications of behavioral sciences. You've heard a lot about the theory. Our applications range across the whole insurance value chain, from the first purchasing decision to the underwriting of a risk, to claims, to retention or customer loyalty, to also perhaps well-being or encouragement of other safe behaviors, maybe cybersecurity or safe driving, or building back better in areas that are affected by natural catastrophes. And within each of the decisions, you can really trickle it down and really find where the human's decision-making happens. Is it about opening that first email that never gets opened? Is it about not disclosing the full information at the underwriting stage? Or is it about canceling the insurance solution because you didn't truly understand what you bought? So once we identify pain points that speak to policyholders' behaviors, then we come into action. And I'll give you some examples as to how this was done. So 3 case studies today. The colleagues at MiN asked me if I could try and bring case studies as relevant to 3 areas, namely product design, and I will start with this, but also trust and marketing. I'll give you an overview, and then I'm sure there will be time for questions at the end. So this first case study was around a health insurance partnership that we've done with a Nigerian health insurance provider. And this was also done in collaboration with the Women's World Banking. The aim was to introduce a hospital cash microinsurance, so indeed to cover those expenses that come as there are health needs. Why is this the case? Because the penetration and the presence of this type of insurance is really low, especially amongst women. And indeed, health insurance is remaining really low despite a mandate of a universal health insurance being present. And this was where we looked to close this gap. And indeed, we helped to close it by providing 98,000 predominantly female entrepreneurs and their families from this type of income replacement when you're sick and you cannot work. Now, let me tell you a bit of behavioral insights that we've been discussing with my colleagues. Oh, sorry, I should say, important is indeed the distribution happened through small business loans to indeed encourage this type of health need. Specifically, when this was brought to market at the beginning, two types of policies were offered. And maybe I'll ask you the question, you've heard a little bit about present bias before, where you perhaps were preferring the $100 today as opposed to waiting for a little bit more time, so keeping more money for yourself. And then indeed, two types of offers were available, the individual insurance and then the insurance for the whole family. Of course, the price of the former was cheaper, whereas the second one was not. And of course, the second one would have had greater future benefits, but those are uncertain. I like the definition of insurance is that it's a promise, a contractual promise that will pay out in the future. But the costs today are really present and very concrete. And so indeed, the first option was very much the one that was bought. However, this was not the way that either the provider locally could achieve scale, nor truly we could increase the cover for a majority of people. And that's where we realized maybe in this product design, it wasn't a good idea to have two policies offered. It was rather better to have an insurance for the whole family as a one option. Some other times, as you probably browse digitally, you may also have 5, 10, 15 options. If you combine the options of different aspects of an insurance that you cover, different policy holders that you might want to include, different exclusions, but also maybe different franchise, so different uncovered values that you might have. And the combination of all these complexities really creates a lot of decision fatigue. And so sometimes indeed simplifying this decision-making is a winning strategy that can be embedded in your product design. Another study that I heard, and I think this was shared by Lemonade and it was mentioned earlier, people have a limited understanding of what a deductible is. That is a part of an insurance, of a claim that policyholders will pay when they have incurred a risk and a loss. If deductibles are so hard to understand, perhaps sometimes it's better to remove them. Of course, this might increase the price, but maybe this could be offset by reducing the amounts of risk that are covered. So all of these elements go hand in hand with the idea of increasing education, which also takes me to the next case studies. The next one up speaks to the topic of trust. And this speaks to the context of Kenya, but is very much of a theme across the whole world. And this is a little bit the wealth that I have in my team, that we really work across the whole world thanks to Swiss Re's presence. In this case, Swiss Re partnered with the Kenyan enterprise Ubuntu and the local insurer APA. We launched together a new product that was covering health insurance for women called APA Femina Plus, which insured female cancer because it's a very big cause of death locally and also of morbidity. And the innovative aspect is that it is integrating preventative services, like, for example, screenings or papillomavirus vaccinations. Indeed, this is a leading cause of illness and death in Kenya, and early diagnosis through the screenings, but also the vaccinations, really increase the chances of survival and reduce the risk of developing cancer. And this is where partnering with a local distributor, which was digitally enabling also the sign-ups to some of these preventative solutions, was the way that we went about it. And this also allowed for seamless appointment booking and so on through the chatbot. Here, the frictions really spoke to the stigma that is associated with being seen or communicating that you're going for these types of treatments, especially if they're not fully understood. And in fact, in creating the awareness of the benefits that this could bring about was an important aspect that otherwise was preventing many eligible women from considering this solution. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work of Dan Ariely and the power of free, or if you've been in public transports or in cafes, even if they have your least favorite candy, if it's free, you'll eat it. I do it all the time. And so this idea of really building on the power of free was something that was embedded here to try and bring the health education to the group of eligible customers, to indeed address eventually the gap in health literacy and increasing the trust by making sure that the potential buyers understood why this was being provided to them. Something similar that comes in other case studies that we work on in other parts of the world speaks to how, at the underwriting stage, there is often, again, stigma associated with bringing out certain topics. And again, a digital channel sometimes helps to bridge that gap to ensure that you don't have to disclose such information, which actually takes me to the last case study, which speaks to indeed the marketing. So here the focus is on South Africa and on markets where selling underwritten products, which require the filling in of health questionnaires to be eligible, is tricky because the people are very much used to guaranteed issue funeral products that don't involve this type of step. And this was rather, though, a research project. And the reason behind it was that it was key for us to try and understand, also with the local providers, why this is such a barrier. And so, indeed, understanding local consumer needs was important. Here are some of the findings that we came up with. So, behavioral frictions around underwriting really speaks also to even the name of the policy. Life insurance and funeral insurance. It's much clearer what the latter is about, and that speaks to indeed the key need of funeral cover and giving a good parting to loved ones, as opposed to the legacy needs, which are not the clear need and key agenda behind why taking a policy. Although, of course, even with the life insurance policy, the types of funds that could be released would be also useful for funeral-related expenses. So there is a lot of power in the name. Easy access was also another challenge, where brokers are incentivized themselves in certain ways that it would bring and sell certain products, or even speak about products that they're easier and more familiar with. And again, underwriting and putting the policyholders at ease wasn't a specific goal of them. And indeed, this was creating a social disincentive whereby policyholders are not really comfortable disclosing to someone else difficult, tricky health conditions, which are often stigmatized. Again, this is something that we see everywhere in the world, especially around topics of perhaps mental health or even recently obesity. And this is a topic across other markets, but it really speaks to any health-related topics. It may be easier to discuss in certain settings, or if you have a good empathy and a good chemistry with the agent. Again, social pressure also speaks to what peers around your family members want to do, and this influences also your purchasing pattern. So respondents would want the interests of their loved ones to be protected and not spent frivolously, which a funeral product ensures because it's very much linked to a specific use. Now, this is one side of the coin. I'm telling you all about the barriers, but the work of behavioral economists and scientists comes in to try and then identify what may be the accelerators. How do you overcome the stigma? How do you incentivize agents and brokers to make it easier to think about an underwriting process that is not stigmatizing, or maybe a policy that is incentivizing them as well? This takes me to the end of my presentation and the 3 case studies. So just to summarize, indeed testing is really key, Because if you do implement theory-driven product design, you're already some way there. But indeed, as we heard earlier, people's behavior will surprise you. So some form of evaluation will really help you. And so this also helps to avoid, I guess, large mistakes, whereby going out to all your customers with what you think will work best might lead to not the best outcome, but instead of starting with a smaller group and piloting and evaluating will be the way that helps you understand the behavioral frictions and maybe the accelerators that you can include. So as promised, here are my contact details and those of my colleague Shelley, who may indeed also be on the line. I know we're having a little bit of trouble logging in, but I'm sure she'll be happy to take also any questions in relation to the projects that I just discussed. And I'm happy to hand it back to the panelists.
Thank you so much, Francesca, for the presentation. Giving us practical case studies on how behavioral science has been incorporated into the design and the marketing of insurance products. And really, this is just to give the attendees of the webinar just a snapshot of the kind of learnings that you will draw if you are part of the cohort for this community of practice. In the interest of time, we'll just go into the program design, how it will look like. And if you could kindly indulge us for maybe an extra 5 minutes. So hope Busara. Jackie is a senior associate at Busara, where she uses behavioral science to design inclusive insurance products and solutions that help communities, especially smallholder farmers and informal workers, designing products that are helping them to build resilience to climate change. She has over 7 years experience in inclusive agricultural insurance across sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, and she has co-created parametric products using human-centered design work. Her journey led her to behavioral science as a way of making insurance more accessible, trusted, and effective. Jackie will be coordinating the program with me from the Busara side. And so I'd like to invite you, Jackie, to walk us through the design of the program and what the participants can expect once they are part of the cohort.
Okay, thank you, Karimi. So if you can share the slides.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much, Karimi, and everyone for joining. And I think from the start of this webinar, we've all had the same story play out, and which you alluded at the beginning, Karimi. Okay, I don't know.
Just
the slides up?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm just sharing them. Okay,
Yes.
here we go.
But really, I was saying the fact that we have great and in fact innovative and inclusive insurance products, and yet there is persistent low uptake of such insurance products and low penetration. And what we often hear is really the fact that maybe clients don't trust, or they don't understand, or they actually don't act, even when the solutions that you created are actually designed specifically for them. You've done all your HCDs. And from what we've heard from Rehab and Francesca is that behavior science can really help us see these failures differently, because of the fact that humans actually make decisions in a different way and they can surprise us. So this is really the purpose of this community of practice. We want to see how best we can close this gap together. So the next slide, Karimi. Yes, so the challenges, the solutions that behavior science can bring to inclusive insurance, and our goal is really building a collaborative learning cohort to pilot and scale behavior insights in inclusive insurance. So you can move to the next, Karima. So what's really this community of practice and what we are calling a learning cohort? It's a cohort-based learning program for 10 organizations or individuals who are actively working in inclusive insurance. It could be insurtechs, commercial players, NGOs or development partners, distribution partners, and other players, including aggregators, really. And we will walk along this journey with you for 6 months, providing tools, mentorship, and platform for peer exchange. So you are not just learning behavior science in that case, but you are actually using it. So it's going to be more and very collaborative and action-oriented. Next slide. So how is the learning series structured? We are going to have a monthly webinar series. Really, it might not be like consecutive months, but in total, we'll have 6 webinars. And these webinars are really cared for us to dig deeper into key behavior principles like trust, what Francesca had mentioned, simplifications, or even message framing. And we will be inviting cases as well, including like what Francesca did to showcase the case studies that they've done and how they've actually applied behavior science in real life to their products journey. And then we'll have mentorship sessions. This will be one-on-one sessions with Busara's behavioral science experts to help tailor learning to your specific challenges. So at the beginning, really, you will choose a challenge that you want to tackle. So you must be actively working in product design or even client engagement. And once you choose that, then you choose a specific goal that you'll be working towards. And that's what will be guiding you towards giving you the necessary tools that you need. And then there will be an assignment because we want this to be really impactful and something that we can measure as well. So there will be, these assignments will be practical and contextualized, and there will be a capstone project that ends with you actually presenting your pilot outcomes during a public webinar towards the end of the 6-month period. And then we will have, or the outcome really that's very important for us as well from this is a behavioral toolkit that we will develop together throughout the learning period, and that will keep beyond the program and can be used publicly really. And we will launch this during a webinar at the end of the program and disseminate it for public consumption. Next, Karimi. So who is this community of practice for and who are we looking for? So for this first cohort, we are looking for organizations who are actively operating in Africa. So you might not, it's not necessary that you are headquartered in Africa, but at least you have to have operations in Africa and inclusive insurance projects going on already in Africa. And then also be actively working on product design, client outreach, and process innovation, because what we want to focus on for this first cohort is product design, client engagement, and communication and marketing. So most of what Francesca touched on from our case studies. And then you must commit to assign 1 or 2 dedicated staff to the COP for the 6-month period, because also there will be the hands-on work that you'll be doing even as you develop your capstone project. And then you should be willing and able to test behavioral ideas and share lessons. So you should be able to apply what we'll be sharing with you as well as we move along throughout the process. Next slide, Karimi. Okay, so this selection process will start with submitting your expression of interest, telling us about your work and motivation. And we've launched that today. So if you've not seen it already, I think it's been posted, a survey has been posted on the chat. So maybe you can already fill that in, but we'll also share these slides with the link to the survey. And also these slides will have a QR code at the end, which you can scan later on once you get the slides, or now once I get there. And then we will close it, of course, in a week, but I will share the timelines later on. And then we will select 10 organizations, as I mentioned at the beginning, really based on diversity, readiness to learn, potential for applying behavioral science approaches. And we are particularly keen as well to include a mix of organizations, innovators, and organizations working with underserved communities. And the selection panel will include, of course, our teams from Busara and the microinsurance network. Next slide. So some key dates for you to consider is we've opened the application today. We'll close it next week on 11th, and then we will notify the 10 participants that will have qualified on 20th June, and we will officially kick off the cohort on 9th or 10th of July, but we will communicate that to the cohort that will have selected on the exact date. Next slide. Yes, so if you have any questions, any follow-up questions, or anything you need really, you can contact me or Karimi. We'll be working on this together. And the QR code there will take you directly to the survey, so you can already fill it in. And if you can be very specific as well, especially in line with your motivation, what's motivating you to join this, and your calls as well. So your calls should be as specific as possible for us to be able to tell which participants could benefit most from this. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'll hand it over to Karimi.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for highlighting and giving a snapshot of what the program will entail and how we intend to bring value to the cohort participants. As mentioned at the beginning of the call, this is an initiative between the Microinsurance Network and Busara Center for Behavioral Economics. And our goal is basically just to see more uptake and usage of behavioral science in designing inclusive insurance products, in marketing inclusive insurance products. Basically, how can we put the policyholder or the customer at the center of our design process, our interaction process, and our marketing campaigns? So we are hoping that by the end of the cohort, the organizations that are part of this cohort will have concrete, tangible outputs that directly speak either to their strategy or a product they've designed or a marketing campaign they've ran. And then we'll also have the evidence of the impact of adopting adopting those insights basically into the design. I think as Francesca has presented from our case studies, there's a wide array of opportunities to leverage behavioral science to better understand and serve the underserved segment. So I cannot see any questions on the chat or in the Q&A chat box. But just to mention that, as Jackie has mentioned, we'll share the presentation. The presentation has the contacts of the different speakers that have spoken. So feel free to reach out to them, or you can reach out to me and Jackie, and we can respond to any questions that you may have. For those that would like to be included in the dissemination of the 3 studies that Rehab talked about, I hope you have responded with either 1, 2, 3. If not, you have the next 10 seconds to do so. And we'll, of course, reach out and let you know when the dissemination is happening. So from, James will share the brochure with you. We'll share the presentation and you'll get to see what the cohort looks like. Please go ahead and share the form that has been shared on the chat. We'll also send it out together with the materials that we send out later. So please, sign up and let us work on this together. I'd like to say thank you to each and every person who's joined us today. Thank you for taking time to be part of this webinar. We truly appreciate your participation. To the speakers, Francesca, Azia, Rehab, and Jackie, thank you so much for the insights that you've shared and the nuggets. And we look forward to seeing all of you guys either during the cohort calls or in the next webinar. Thank you so much.